Welcome back to the FitBiz Journey podcast with your hosts, Lizzie, Parita, Daniel. Today we have a very special guest joining us. This is Kal Patel, and he is a corporate attorney. Thank you for being here, Kal. We're so excited to have you. Lots of important things to discuss today. Personal trainers, business owners, if you're looking to open a fitness business studio or anything like that, you need to definitely do it the legal way and the right way. So we're going to learn about some details there. But Kal, if you wanted to start off telling us a little bit about yourself and kind of what brings us. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys for having me today. I listen to your podcast all the time, and I love the guests you guys have. And, it's really good.
Thank you.
I was actually setting my own goals for 2019. And so as, I'm an entrepreneur myself and a business owner, and I started my own practice 2 years ago. And it's, I provide corporate law services to clients that want to start a business, or if they already have a business, we help them grow their business with some growth strategies and things like that. Yeah.
Glad to hear that. And the previous episode you just mentioned is all about our goal settings. That's what he's you're referring to, right?
Yeah, yeah. And, and I think, listening to these podcasts and things like that, it's very helpful for entrepreneurs to be, part of that community and stay focused on what they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. And so our idea was for today, guys, is that because we have met so many business owners, not just in fitness, but any business owner for that matter could benefit from this episode. But we're going to start out basically like if you become a personal trainer and you, let's say, start your own business, because we see this all the time. And what I see most of the time, that they start with their own name. They go ahead and start johndoe.com fitness, or whatever the usual name is that you say, .com. And then, so first question I wanted to ask you, that can they even do that they just put their first and last name.com and then that's my business?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. And, we would call that a sole proprietor. And it's a great way to start off being a personal trainer. So like if you're very new to the space and you want to try it out and you don't exactly know if this is something you're going to like, then that's a great way to just kind of start off. But if you know this is something you want to do and you want to take it seriously, then you definitely need to incorporate. Otherwise, you're not going to, have asset protection, limit your liability, and you also get to save taxes if you incorporate.
Yeah. So do you say that they could just, as a personal trainer, they could, let's say, have their personal bank account and then they collect paychecks from people that they train and deposit it to John Doe Fitness or something like that, or johndoe.com, whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, again, so when they do that, right, they're attaching all their personal liability whenever something happens, So in personal training, it's there's a lot of liability there, because you don't know what injuries that person might have had, or if they're going to do the proper movements and things like that. So, it's always a good idea to protect yourself. Well, here's the thing, I want to try to kind of say that if you're going to be a personal trainer, anything can happen, right? Yes. Anyone can sue you for anything. Yeah. And especially when you're dealing in this space, when it's very subjective, right? Yeah. And, as a personal trainer, you have a lot of, you have your family, you have your house, you have your car, and if you provide personal training under your own name, all of that is subject to liability. Even if you get in a car accident when you're driving, or not even related to your actual client, it could be all related to all kinds of liability. And so if you form your company, it's going to better protect yourself, and it also help you get into the mentality of, hey, I'm a legitimate business. I'm not just a service provider, but I'm trying to be established. I'm going to get established. Yeah.
So what would you recommend? So I already know what you would recommend, but for the people listening, what would be your number one recommendation if somebody's listening, if they are about to, let's go with, just got their personal training certifications, and they are thinking to open up their own business, not a location itself, let's just go with, they are renting out a space, let's say from a studio or from a gym. What would you recommend to them to do? Form an LLC or go with their own name, or what do you think? Yeah,
I would definitely recommend forming an LLC and then pick a unique name for their business. And depending on how much income you're going to be generating, you may even want to consider being taxed as an S corporation. So, when you're an LLC, it doesn't give you any tax advantages. It just provides you with liability protection. So let's say if you're a personal trainer, you're making around $50,000 to $70,000 a year. You definitely want to be taxed as an S corporation, and you'll save a couple of $1,000s in taxes.
Perfect.
Great.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, and this is just you would recommend it to a personal trainer who would come into a gym and, let's say, rent a space from a gym owner, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we would call that person an independent contractor. And even though they're just providing one service to renting out the space, it's still a business. And you have to treat it like that. Yeah.
And not to get off topic, but even picking a unique name, is there a way that they can verify that they're not going to be taking a name that's already taken?
Yeah, the first thing I tell people is just Google it and see, what comes up, right?
Yeah.
Trademark law is very complicated, just because it's very old and the rules have just kind of stuck, right? And so first thing is, just Google it and see if there's other companies using that name. If not, then maybe you want to think of something else. Some of the basic advice I give to some of my clients when they're picking a business name is, if you are on a startup budget, then consider these 3 elements in your name, right? Some sort of geographic descriptor in your name, what you do, and your brand, whatever your brand is and what you do and where your business is. And so whoever's reading that name, they can exactly tell, one, where you provide your services, what you do, and who you are.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And then, so that's for the personal trainer, sorry, losing my voice. That's for the personal trainer who would, let's say, go into a studio. So what about the personal trainer who about to open their own studio? And what should they start if they, and would you recommend for them, let's say, to hire on contractor basis, like have contractors if they're doing for additional trainers, of course, or employees W-2s, like 1099 versus W-2s, how do you stand there?
Sure, so that's a very gray area, okay? There's about 12 different organizations that govern the relation between an employee and an independent contractor, okay?
Wow.
So if one organization says, hey, you're fine, you can classify as a contractor, then another regulatory organization say, well, hold on a second, this sounds like an employee relationship, so you're liable now, right? And so, for example, the Department of Labor has its own classification, the IRS has its own classifications, the Florida Workers' Compensation has its own classification. So it's a very, if you don't understand all of these things, you want to just keep it straightforward, right? If you treat them like an employee, just, pay them as an employee. If you're going to be an independent contractor, then you treat them like an independent contractor. And one of the things I've done for some of my clients who want an easy way to tell whether they should treat someone as an independent contractor or an employee, and that's if you're an independent contractor, you're going to have multiple sources of income, right? So if you have a trainer and you're the only source of income for them, you're most likely want to treat them as an employee. But if that trainer, works at one gym, works at another gym, works at another gym, then they can, most likely be classified as an independent contractor because they're not getting their main income directly from one source.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And then, we meet with so many people, and so many gym owners would say that they don't want to invest into employees and so many things, and they just prefer to keep them 1099. So what risks would they face if they just keep these employees? I guess they should be employees because they tell them to show up at this time, they tell them to do this and this, work disclosed, have their emails, phone numbers, whatever. Like, what are the risks that they might face if they do that? Yeah,
so some of the risks that they can face is, let's say you want, you grow your business and you want to sell it, right? Now, if you have 20 independent contractors that you're treating like employees, well, that potential buyer of your business is going to say, oh wow, that's a lot of liability. I don't know if I want to buy this business, and that's because the IRS can come after you for back taxes on employment liability.
So all the years that you didn't pay taxes, basically.
Exactly, which can be a significant amount of money. And if you're trying to sell your business, and if you have someone who wants to buy your business, they're going to say that that's a big red flag. And I don't know if this is a good business to buy because it has all this liability attached to it.
Because it would transfer with them.
It would transfer with it. Yeah.
Tax
liability is the only thing that you cannot, dissolve. You can't close your company down and all of a sudden, poof, it's gone. No, they're going to come after you.
It's good when you mention it, because when I, started basically For You Fitness, before it was something else, and then So I liked the name, and so I bought, the name was somebody else's name, so I bought the name from somebody else.
Okay.
So technically I bought bought For Your Fitness LLC with it. That's how the name came, because I didn't know the law back then. I was 21 years old. And then I just bought it, so that I owned the name, and then I realized it wasn't even trademarked. So I could have just like went and trademarked it, and I don't have to pay anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyways, the point what I'm trying to say is that because I bought the LLC, and then the taxes that you didn't pay for like employees, for example, it traveled to me.
Oh,
so I actually experienced that, but it wasn't big of a deal. It was, well, it was $1,000, but still $1,000 is lots of money.
Yeah.
It could have been way more, but it was a mistake because they didn't even have employees at For Your Fitness.
Yeah. And
I had to deal with it. Sorry.
Let me share an anecdote I had with another client of mine. You know, he's in another industry, and they use independent contractors. And this is a true story. It happened. Okay. I had an investigator from the Department of Workers' Compensation. So one of his competitors called and complained on him to the Department of Workers' Compensation, saying, "Hey, this person is using independent contractors, and my firm is a registered agent for the company." So he came and talked to me and this investigator, and he's asking all these questions and everything like that. And one of the things he told me, well, I told him, yeah, they're all independent contractors. We have the proper documents and everything, and this is with the Florida Department of Workers' Compensation. And he said it doesn't matter if I determine, or if we determine that these are employees, then you're also going to be liable not for employment wages, but workers' compensation, not having the workers' comp insurance and the fines associated with that and things like that. And these are hefty fines. And he was telling me, some businesses get fined, up to $75,000 just because they don't have the proper insurance. Yeah. And then also if your trainers get hurt and you don't have proper workers' comp insurance, they can sue your business for the liability because they got hurt on your business. And so if you treat your trainers as an employee and have workers' compensation for them, you also have the benefit of reducing that liability if they get hurt on your premise, because a workers' comp, that's what it's for. It limits the liabilities that employers have with employees, and takes care of the employees too with their health, medical bills and things like that.
I mean, good to know, because there are so many people who will be, I hope not, but they will be facing some of these because of this happening.
Yeah. Well, so if you are a personal trainer, or if you do have a gym and you want to hire an independent contractor, I would always recommend make sure you have an independent contractor agreement. All right. Make sure they have insurance, their own liability insurance.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah. And then have guidelines and rules that everyone has to follow, right? Yes. And make sure that you treat them as an independent contractor, meaning you don't tell them when they have to come and they have to work, but you can say, you can use my space between 9 and 5, whenever the gym's open, and you can come in and go as you please, okay? You can't have that person stay there, right? So you have to treat them truly as an independent contractor, and make sure you have it all written down, and that'll help if, anyone asks questions.
So can they also, let's say if you tell this contractor, because I've seen this all the time,
yeah,
that the gym owner would tell the contractor that I want you to be there at 5 a.m. tomorrow. What could happen if the trainer reports that to, I guess, the workers' comp, or where would he report it?
Anywhere he wants. That's the thing, right?
Okay,
he could refer it to the Department of Labor, he could refer it to the IRS, to the Florida Unemployment Office. There's a lot of organizations that govern the employee-employer relationship. And the sad thing is anyone can complain about anything.
And they just come and check out what
yep,
you do.
Exactly.
So if you have some competition that you don't like, you can just call up the phone and say, hey, you should check this gym out. I think they have contractors.
Yeah, so you got to really be careful when it comes to, when you're going to hire people and when you're going to hire vendors, right? That's what we refer to independent contractors, is they're your vendors.
Vendor.
Yeah.
And
that makes a big difference.
And then what if a lawsuit happens if they're a contractor? So then the contractor is liable, or you're liable, do you know?
You're both liable, right?
That's why they need their insurance too.
Yes, that's why you need their insurance too. And so the way it works is, again, you have to have an agreement with them that says, hey, if anything happens because you're working in my gym, you're going to cover my expenses that I incur because of your fault, right? And that's what we call an indemnification agreement. And that's part of, that should be part of your independent contractor agreement that says, hey, if I do something and it's my fault, I'm going to also take care of you if you get somehow involved with it.
And how much something like this cost, and where could they find a base? Like we're talking about, let's say, a personal trainer who don't have any money to start this. What should they do?
Sure. Well, if you're a personal trainer and you're just starting, then you probably aren't hiring other people, right? So you should just ask whoever the gym owner is, to have this agreement drafted for you. And so it'll be beneficial for both parties. Yeah.
And then if you are not established and you want to hire some contractors, then where could you find these documentations, or should you just hire an attorney or something like that?
It depends. I would definitely recommend hiring an attorney for sure. And the thing is, it varies widely in the cost between attorneys as well. So if you're very savvy, if you want to spend the time, learning about the differences and researching the various aspects, you can totally do it yourself. Okay, there's a lot of templates out there that you can use. But if you have an attorney, they can counsel you on these additional fine print aspects of the contracts, which is the boilerplate. No one reads the boilerplate, but the boilerplate is what's really going to protect your business in the end. So I would definitely recommend getting a consultation with an attorney, letting them know what it is that you're going to be doing, and establishing that relationship, because as you grow your business, you're going to have more questions like this. And so, find a local business lawyer and make sure they only do business law, because there's a lot of people out there who do, personal injury or real estate, and they may just do, these contracts, but, because they don't do it that often, they may miss something that may be very important. To protect you, especially in the liability protection side.
I was going to say, so if you have a business and you start off with subcontracted employees, but then you want to move them into like actual employment, just changing the way the business is, what does that look like?
Well, you want to have a whole employee onboarding process, right? If you're going to hire your employee, we give a guide to our clients, and it's called Hiring Your First Employee, and it tells you exactly all the steps you need to follow to hire an employee. Legally, yeah. There's a lot of things you need to do if you hire an employee, and you want to make sure you have an employment contract or some sort of terms on, that this is how much you're going to get paid, this is what we expect, job duties, job responsibilities. And, if they accept, then, you would have them start your employee onboarding process where you do, introduce them to your company, your culture, get them to fill out the proper legal documentations. And then I would also recommend working with a payroll company to just kind of do the payroll for you, or have your accountant do the payroll. Because you can do it yourself, but again, as an entrepreneur, you're going to have a lot of different things to do, and this is just one of those things you're not going to want to do in the future anyway. So just
it's a pain in the butt.
It's a pain in the butt.
And if you mess up something, not necessarily you, like for example, QuickBooks, we had QuickBooks last year, and then all you have to do, and even our accountants do it, and they double check, and the bookkeeper and everything. But because the way we pay, how we pay our employees, I don't remember, but they have different bonuses each month. So sometimes I just look in and click on approve and that kind of stuff. And then filing the quarterly taxes, you've just basically printed out. It's all e-file, it says on QuickBooks. However, last year, I don't want to say anything bad about QuickBooks because they're awesome. But what happened is that something didn't match up with IRS, and then even though you filed everything, it looked like each quarter you didn't file. So I started to get these notices from the IRS all the year around.
Yeah, those are scary notices.
Yeah, and I had to deal with it, and I'm like, I filed. What the hell is going on? And then I send them back, printed it out again, and I send it back, and then I finally talked to your accountant, and the accountant said that, oh yeah, this is the issue, and that, and then she fixed it in like 10 minutes, but I dealt with it for like a year. Back and forth. That was annoying.
No, that definitely, and one of the things that I've learned as an entrepreneur myself is, people that have expertise in specific areas, they can save you a lot of time, and and help you stay focused on what you're trying to do is with your company and whatever you're trying to sell.
I'm glad you brought it up, because this is the perfect analogy that I used back in the days when I first did everything in my business, like a long time ago. When the AC broke, and I called the AC repair guy before, and he would come out and fix it and charge me like $400, and I was like so pissed that it's so expensive back then, especially when I didn't have any money. So I was like, I'm just gonna do it myself. So next time it broke, I Googled it, and then I bought the gas, whatever you call it, that you get for it, the tubes, the connects.
Yeah.
I already spent like $250 on it, but it's still half off. So right now I just have to hook it up and do it myself. So it took me like a full day to do it. So that's like 8 hours. Right?
Yeah.
And at that time I charged $50 per session. So 8 times 50 plus what I spent was already over $500. You know, that the person would have fixed it.
Yeah.
And then I fixed it, and it actually didn't work. So then I still had to call the guy. And then he come out and charged me an additional $500, so it would cost me double. And that was just one, you know?
Yeah.
But same with the computers. People would just fix it themselves, even though if it takes a whole day, and then they don't realize that in your case, if you're fixing your own computer, right? Because you charge, let's say, I'm just saying a random number, that's not your rate, like $500 an hour. I'm not sure if that's his rate, just saying random number, just so you guys know. So let's say you charge $500 an hour, and then if you fix your computer yourself and it takes you 4 hours, that's a pretty expensive computer.
Yeah.
You should have just bought a new one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a good analogy because everybody can, you know, use that.
Yeah.
So let's go back to, let's say, what happens if you have your business, you start it, and then somebody uses the same name as you have? What would you recommend them to do?
Sure. Well, so you know, when that happens, you need to take a look at a few things. Okay. One is, where is this business located? You know, if we're in Florida, is this business also in Florida, or is it somewhere else in the country? Okay. So, and then two, do you have a trademark? Okay. And I'll tell you why that's important is if you have a trademark, then your name is protected throughout the country. Okay. But if you don't have a trademark, your name is still protected, but it's what we call common law trademark protection.
What does that mean?
That means that your name is protected within your geographic area.
Got it.
So let's say, you know, you didn't have a trademark and your business is For You Fitness, and this is the only studio. Your trademark would likely only have protection within, you know, maybe St. Petersburg or Pinellas County. So if anyone opened it in, you know, within this area, then you could, you know, send them a cease and desist and saying, hey, you know, you're copying my trademark and so-and-so, and try to get them to not use that name or change it to something else. But let's say if it was in Washington and you didn't have a trademark, then you can't really stop them from using that name. Unless you, again, register your trademark, which is a national registration, and then you can send them a cease and desist saying, hey, you know, we have this trademark and we'd like you to stop using it. But even then, you know, they could say, well, we've been using it before you trademarked it, and then it gets into, you know, a lot of complicated issues with that. So if you have a strong brand name and you really want to protect it, then I would definitely recommend trademarking it. Yeah.
And so, for example, what if you trademark it and then all these studios all of a sudden just popping up with your name, and if you don't do anything about it, can you lose your trademark?
You can, yeah. So, yeah, and that's what happened to, you know, Kleenex, you know, the Kleenex brand. That was an actual trademark, but because people just started referring it to the tissues, they lost their protection.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Xerox is another one. Xerox was another trademark, and then it lost its protection because everyone just referred to copying as, you know, Xerox.
But how would they protect it though? Because that would have been pretty costly for them, right? If they wanted to protect it.
Yeah, and so, you know, as you're a brand, you know, I would definitely send them cease and desist letters. Even if you know, hire an attorney, see if you can get a template letter that you can use to send out to a bunch of people, and it doesn't have to necessarily go from an attorney, and it puts the other party on notice. You know, but for my clients, I don't recommend them getting a lot into IP unless they're making strong investment in IP. So for example, you know, if you're a personal trainer, you're not really investing a lot in IP in the beginning.
Property.
Yeah, intellectual property.
Yeah, just making sure.
And in that situation, you know, what I advise them is focus on your business, focus on growing it, focus on getting sales, focus on increasing your profits, and then you can worry about, you know, the infringers. So because when it comes to trademarking, it's whoever uses the name first in commerce gets the right to trademark the name, regardless of whether you register it. So, you know, if you open it first and no one else has done it, and you can prove that you established it on this date, then you can register your trademark. But again, it gets complicated because if someone else does it, then you have to attack their trademark, which makes it more expensive. That's why it's easier. So we charge $950 to do a national trademark, and it's a very cost-effective way to just kind of get it protected. So if you have a really good name, again, I only emphasize this to do this if you have a really good brand name, and you're going to be investing in a lot of digital assets like YouTube videos, social media. You're going to be spending a lot of money, and it's going to get a wide reach. Versus if you're just kind of here locally, you're not going to get a wide reach. Then you may even want to consider something like a state trademark, which is much cheaper, and it costs anywhere between like $250, which is a much cheaper option. Yeah. And
what would you recommend in trademarks? Let's say for a gym. In our case, we trademarked it for basically a personal training studio or facility and supplements and clothing line.
First thing you have to ask yourself is what do I sell? Okay, and if you're a gym, you're selling personal service in the fitness industry, right? And so there's a specific class for that, personal training services, and then each service you add or you provide. So let's say For You Fitness has a trademark in personal service. That doesn't mean that your name is protected if you start selling t-shirts all of a sudden, right? If you want to protect, your ability to sell t-shirts with your name on it, you need to register a trademark class for your logo and your t-shirts. So for merchandise, right? Then you can have your clothing line protected. So each class looks different. So if you're a gym, you do personal training, that'd be one class. If you do nutritional counseling, that could be another class. If you're doing merchandise, that's a whole nother class. And each class is an additional fee of almost like $300. So, when it comes to your trademarking and understanding your IP, first thing is first, get your business going to a point where you figured out how it works. You can get the sales, you have a brand, and you're happy with it, and this is what you're going to stick with. And then you definitely look for registering trademark for maybe top 3 services that you have. Yeah. Got it.
I know that we talked a little bit about it before we started recording, but the nutrition side of things, that's a whole nother ball game, especially in the state of Florida compared to the rest of the U.S. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, one of the things that we now also see is a lot of people kind of becoming health coaches, diet coaches, along with personal training. And I think these are some great avenues for personal trainers to differentiate their business from someone who may not have experience in nutrition and things like that. Of course, you need to have the proper training and certifications to be able to provide these services. And you want to just kind of be careful with that you're not crossing over into licensed services when it comes to providing your services. For example, a licensed nutritionist requires a specific license from the state of Florida. And if you're going to be working in kind of like the health space, I know I had a client who was a personal trainer. He had his own gym, and some lady on the internet just reported, she doesn't even live in the state, and she saw his YouTube videos and things like that, and then she reported him to the Department of Health. And they started investigating because she said he's doing physical therapy stuff. And they came out, and lo and behold, he just has a normal gym. And the investigator that came out from the Department of Health, he said this happens quite a bit to personal trainers. And so it's very important to kind of know when you're going to be a personal trainer or a nutritionist or combining these different trends, what is that line that you cross over? Hey, okay, now can this be considered personal, physical therapy? Can this be considered, providing licensed nutritional services? Can this be considered, providing therapy? So you always want to be careful when you're in the personal service business.
And what if you don't have license to do some of those things that you do in your own studio? And someone reports you, what could happen to you?
You can get fined. You can go to jail. There's criminal penalties associated with these things, and they can shut your business down too, saying, "Hey, you committed, you started an illegal business, and we're not going to let you keep it open."
And that's just you reported to the health department for that matter.
And again, each state has its own regulatory body that people can complain to if there's serious issues like that. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so then because we have to wrap it up, but what would you recommend then? Let's say a gym owner who has his business and seeks some legal advice on hiring, firing, or anything for that matter. Where could they find an attorney that could help them, guide them?
Yeah, well, one, they can call us. we'll help them out. But if they want someone, more local to them, then I would search for, a small business lawyer or a business lawyer. And go with like a smaller firm versus a larger law firm. Look for a solo practitioner that specifically helps people with their companies. And doing that, they'll be able to dedicate enough time to your file to understand the aspects of your business and where the licensing comes in, right? Now, if you have specific questions, like, if you have a different business model, something really unique, then you may want to look for someone with a little bit more expertise with the FDA or regulatory licensing in whichever state that you're in.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then where can people find you?
People can find us at flpatellaw.com or call 727-279-5037.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
And you're also on Instagram too, and Facebook.
Yeah, at FL Patel Law, and Facebook, same thing, FL Patel Law. Yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you very much for coming today.
Yeah, of course.
We appreciate it. And then guys, if you're still here and listening, make sure that you watch us on YouTube, because this is also video. Yeah. And then let's tune in on iTunes, Spotify, anywhere you want. We are basically on every single platform. And then please share it, please like it, comment, we reply back. If you have any questions to me, to Parita, to Kalpesh, to anybody. Lizzie. And please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you.
Thank you.